And welcome, y'all. And welcome. Yes, welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome back to another episode of Zen Chaos on this Monday. We appreciate y'all. I am Dean. That over there is the bad man Zen. How you doing today, bud?
Not bad. A little tired, a little sweaty from shovel. Got this foot and a half coming down outside.
Well, for people who don't know, Zen is down there in the good old Long Island, and Long Island has gotten hit with some good old snow. And I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, as an upstater, congratulations. Good job. Good job out there, boys. Good job. The snow has hit y'all finally, and it's not come up here to bother us. So I am elated to hear that for y'all.
We got a year off, so I get it. We got a year off.
You deserve it. You deserve everything that's coming to you. And speaking of deserving of everything coming to you or coming to them, however people want to take it. Gotta get into a little bit of Joe Rogan, Jordan Peterson, Don Lemon, Dr. Michael Eric Dyson. A little interesting. It's a little water's a little warm, a little hot. Right? Now, for people who don't know, Jordan Peterson was on the Joe Rogan Experience. It's a podcast available on Spotify. They were having conversations such as they do. It's not Jordan's first rodeo on the Joe Rogan show. And they got what happened?
I think it's his third.
Yeah, third or fourth. Yeah, he's been on there a little bit.
Yeah.
They got into a conversation that then dipped into the social race, social construct of it, white and black. So instead of us going to regurgitate what they said, let's go ahead and listen to them. Then listen to a little bit of what the good old boys down there, Don Lemon and Dr. Michael Eric Dyson, what they said. What do you think about that one, Zen?
I think they missed the point.
Right out the gate. Well, you know what? That's that is a take that you and I both share. Possibly for different reasons, maybe for the same reasons. Don't know, but we're about to find out right now. So let's go ahead and tune in. This is shout out CNN. For us, being able to use the video and then not really being assholes and stuff like that. Still gotta adhere to the 30-second pause shit. That's what we will be doing. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, of course, fair use. So shout out to fair use. Actually, fuck CNN. Yeah, you're right. Fuck CNN because I actually fucking hate CNN. I hate Fox. I hate all these fucks.
Yeah, I kind of.
But yeah, they're terrible. Oh yeah, but
they're trash.
We do have a Fox video later on for the people, so don't worry, it evens out. So all right, so let's go ahead and just hear a little bit of a snippet of the conversation.
Depending on who you ask, either you're a voice of reason and rationality and personal responsibility, or you're a voice of intolerance and bigotry and anger and hateful
sexual aggression.
What did Michael
prejudice?
Eric Dyson call you? An mean, angry white man.
And a mean, angry white man. Yeah,
hilarious.
Yeah.
You're not mean at all.
Yeah.
That's what's done.
Okay. Well, obviously, just because we have to.
I don't know the context.
Yeah,
I'll say that one.
Don't know the context at all.
I kind of don't care, but
don't care at all. But I will say that obviously some might be mean and some might not be. All that's still subjective. But I get it. Obviously in Joe Rogan's experience with Jordan Peterson, whatever the case may be.
Maybe that combo wasn't going well, but
absolutely, you know what I'm saying. But let us continue.
Dumb about that statement. You're not mean at all.
I am white. Actually, that's a lie too. I'm kind of tan, and he was actually not black.
You're tan,
he was
what
sort
the
of
am I? Because I'm darker than you.
Yeah,
that's ridiculous.
Yeah, but neither of us are white.
Well, I'm Italian,
and
mostly.
He was brown, not black.
Well,
okay. So now, before we even hear, because this video is 8 minutes and 26 seconds long, but this is basically the context of what they said in regards to the comments, right? So, hold on, we still got a little bit more.
There's a little more to it that they dig on. So
let's just finish it out.
Yeah, it's really weird.
The black and white thing is so strange because the shades are so
tan and brown.
There's such a spectrum of shades of people. Unless you're talking to someone who is like 100%.
Oh, yes, this part
from the darkest place where they're not wearing any clothes all day, and they've developed all that melanin to protect themselves from the sun. Even the term black is weird. And when you use it for people that are literally my color, it becomes very.
Okay. We're still going to refrain from comments right now. I know we both got a lot going on, but let's just do the right thing for the people. Let's power through this thing. Let's see what's going on.
Strange.
Gentlemen, welcome to the project. The project is a 75-hour experience.
All right, this is great.
Recommend-
Seeing the video.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, had to throw an ad in there.
I eliminate that life. I just suck it up and pay.
Really?
Yeah, I'm YouTube Red. Everything I listen to is like 3 hours long. I have zero time for commercials. Zero. I hate the ads. And I like to be able to listen to whatever I'm listening to while doing other stuff on my phone. So I just pay for YouTube Red.
Huh. This is a conversation we're going to have to talk about off air because I'm very interested in that.
Cool.
Very interested in that. All right. So let's all right. Now we got Don Lemon on here. Let's go with Dr. Eric Dyson.
African American and Diaspora Studies at Vanderbilt University joins me now. He's the author of Entertaining Race, Performing Blackness in America. Hello, Professor. Thank you for joining us. So your name was dropped because here's why. Because you have previously debated Jordan Peterson, but yeah, and they mentioned it, right? He said you said you were, I don't know, something an angry white man or something like that. Or
I don't. Okay. Let me shut up to my own device.
I forget. Let's go beyond these two guys. Talk about what's really happening here. Is it really that perplexing to people that Black America exists in all kinds of shades? That doesn't change the Black experience in America.
Not at all. Thank you for having me, Brother Don. You know, you would
Pause before he starts. That there says, like, off the bat, you're on a whole different topic. You're talking about something different right off the bat. There was nothing in their word that said anything about a confusion on shades. Nothing about what they said was a confusion on shades. Aside, all right. There's a slight element of it mixed in, but in the way Don's framing it, no.
Brother Zen, thank you for having me on. But I would be remiss if I did not state that they're actually. So you're right in the way that Don just framed it. It is a hell of a reach, but it's a reach that he possibly could get to. And the reason I say that is just because there is a point where Joe Rogan does state. He's like, it's crazy when you that, or I'm paraphrasing this portion of it. I don't have his exact words, but he basically just says that, it's kind of crazy that, you use the term Black for people who has the shade as light as me. And
my grandma, my grandmother was white as shit. My grandmother was white as shit, we called her a Black woman. So I get where Lemon's going from off that part, I guess.
Right. And I guess
element.
And I guess too, and then looking on the screen, I'm guessing, especially them being lighter brothers, obviously they're gonna have to have lighter people, and they're gonna have to be descendants of lighter people. So within their line, I'm guessing that they've had people that had to have that conversation, or they've had those conversations of they've had families who are able to pass white. You see what I'm saying? So I guess that is where he is trying to get the reach from. But I do see your point in what you're stating on in regards to that is a reach, because I do agree with you that it is a reach. They're still not attacking the actual comments as of yet, but let's keep on playing it and let's see what we get to, eh?
Because if they weren't, this exposes the vast lethal ignorance at the heart of so much whiteness, whether intentional or not. We all know that Black is not a phenotypical reality. We're not talking about a genetic predisposition toward darker skin. We're speaking about an existential context. We're talking about a philosophical idea. We're speaking about rooted cultures in deep histories.
And that's the issue, because we have to, the argument that Joe and Jordan are having, because they have the argument about Black and white.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? They're having the conversation, I guess, just based off of what we're calling people, right?
Right.
Like, you're Black, you're white. I think absolutely, but it's I obviously don't know Joe Rogan. Can't speak for Joe Rogan.
No.
But what I'm assuming what was happening within that conversation is that it's a different conversation on it. Like, it's not as if he was saying that the term African American is weird.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Now where Joe Rogan lost it, you know what I mean? And he probably could have cleared it up if when he did that African shit, saying like, oh, like your melanin is so deep.
That was like, that has nothing to do with the motherfucker. Like nothing.
That has nothing to do with nothing. But then now on the flip side, that brings the point that it then correlates with what Dr. Dyson is saying in regards to that is clearly deep rooted within your ignorance and your whiteness, because obviously the two brothers speaking on here and most of the people going to be listening on this airway, maybe not, depending on how this thing get tagged and where it goes. We understand that there are indigenous people within Africa, the same way there are indigenous people within Australia, the same way there are indigenous people within Latin America, all that kind of stuff. But for the most part, Africa is an advanced nation. Like let's call a spade a spade. Like it's still like considered a third world country, so third world nation, yada yada yada. Certain parts of it, obviously South Africa is a different conversation. But even when you look up, like in Northern Africa, things along those lines, they have Nigeria has it looks like New York City.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's not this destitute, desolate place that they live next door to fucking goddamn cheetahs. Like that's not how this goddamn thing goes.
Right.
Like the same way that in upstate New York you're gonna end up running into goddamn coyotes, wolves, bears, whatever the case may be. Depending on if they live in the rural section of Africa, they're gonna face those same things. So then that does speak to the ignorance that Jordan and the good old Dr. Joe Rogan was showing. You can't dispute that as well. So like for me, I'm understanding on both sides right now where they're wrong, but let's go and continue this thing. This thing is still early on. I'm sorry. Do you have anything else?
I'm with you on that part. I can see where Dr. Dyson is coming from when he's saying the ignorance element, because that does play into the you're from the deepest parts where you wear no clothes. Like that has clothing or not no clothing. If you are just dark, you're dark, and like that plays to the ignorance. So I do see where they're coming from with that part, but I don't think that that's where they were trying to go with it. I think they were sticking on the color. Like my daughter was saying, my wife, she's like, you're like peachy white, like you're literally speaking the color. She calls us brown, she doesn't call us black. She said your skin's brown. So I get like that. To me is where they're coming from.
Absolutely.
But you throw your ignorance in when you throw in the deepest parts of Africa where you were like, so
because then another reach, right? But then not even a reach, but an argument, I would say, because as you were talking, that could be stated is is just like, oh, is this now another case? Because what we have been seeing, I feel on both sides, is there has been a conscious effort to define blackness, but it's white people trying to define blackness for black people.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And that is exactly what was happening with Jordan and Joe. That's that. Now we want to have that conversation, because now you're trying to have the definition of what is black for African American standpoint. Right. It's like okay.
Why do we refer to it? It's like, well, that's a different combo. It's not it's not really a skin tone thing. So
let's listen to this. But this is interesting.
That have vast traditions that have generated complicated identities. And we know that Blackness, in terms of its identity, ranges from vanilla vitality to chocolate charm, and all ranges in between. So it's not about shade. It's not about a kind of inherited characteristic of race. Race is, as we've been arguing in school, and I would advise Dr. Peterson and Brother Rogan to take a class. When we talk about race as a
Okay, so now he's tying it in with the race, obviously, because they say I'm black and white, which we still haven't defined what they're talking about for the whiteness, for their part of white, especially with Joe talking about, like, I guess, like, at the end of the day,
the
argument is wrong. Like, they're just regurgitating their same points in different fashions, but the argument is still lost on like what was said, because it's not only just a black comment, I guess. And do we even need to listen to any more of this? I guess. because it's kind of the same thing.
Nah, yeah, they kind of do
because we already saw,
they circle around missing the point where it's I understand the ignorant part, and you're trying to point out how ignorant they are, but their comments were very surface level.
Yeah,
with little ignorance built in to parts of it, but there are things where, oh, why do you refer to me as white? I am not white. If you look at the color white and put my hand next to it, they don't match. Like, that's what they're talking about.
Yeah, they're being literal.
Right. And then they're, because of the fact that it starts with, well, he called you a mean white man, which is wrong because you're not mean. He's like, I am white, but I'm not really white. Like, it's, so then that's where you're digging at the, like, I do that too, where it's like, well, if you're going to get technical with it, you called me black, I'm brown. Like, you want to get, if you want to play stupid with me, trying to get mean, like, right. Brown. So I get where they're coming from.
Of course, because we do know what, but then also, I guess if we're just looking at
white man digs.
Yeah, it's a complete white man dig.
That's their way of like, this is how I'm gonna get back at you. I'm gonna point out the ignorance in your statements. Like
I'm this. It's like, okay. It's like, all right, you can be that, bud. Doesn't matter to me, but we all know what this is defined as within this society of language and what that all means. So I don't, to me at least, I think I'm surprised. The part of the thing that I would assume everyone would have wanted to educate Joe Rogan on, if the comments were going to go, would have been the Africa part. Mm-hmm. The black and white part, the specifically the black comment, didn't expect that to go wild because they just literally have a conversation within the clip that we see about the white part. Mm-hmm. That preface it. That is never spoken about. So to me, it's like, we're just, if we are going to have a conversation about this, it would be that. Right. Pointing that part out, you know what I mean? Like, Akon City is going to be built where? Africa, bud. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there has been investments within Africa going on for fucking years and decades. There's a reason why there's like this little silent war going on over there for all those minerals and stuff. We're not going to have a conversation about that now, but but like, that's a conversation that I would assume that someone would want to educate Joe Rogan on. I believe that someone like Joe Rogan would be very interested in having that kind of conversation. But once again, I guess it just goes back to media manipulation and how they're just trying to kind of like stoke flames within everyone, and obviously trying to get attention grabbing headlines and things along those lines. It's a joke, and we saw it live. Like, they just skip a whole part of it and just go right after one part. Like,
we're going to go after this section. He said this, so obviously they're calling black people. They're saying you're not black unless you're from Africa. It's like, no, that's not what they were saying. Yes, he threw in the element of, if you're going to refer to black, maybe you're talking about these people, which is ignorant.
Right.
But they weren't saying that you're not black if you're not that. Like, it's
right.
That's not what they were saying. But this is how you're gonna grift their racists. Don't go on their side, come to our side. We don't do that. Look, we're calling them out.
Which I don't understand, that people always have just been like, Joe Rogan's racist. I don't get it. I've never really got that argument. And don't get me wrong, like, I'm somebody who I listen to Joe Rogan. I used to listen to him a lot more than I do now.
Same.
Certain conversations that if he's gonna have on there with certain people I'm on, like certain comedians I gotta listen to when he's back on there with them, or certain government officials or doctors, things like that. Yeah, I'll go for that. But like, I'm not really like, the Joe Rogan guy that I used to be, but I never did understand where everyone was like, oh, Joe Rogan's all of a sudden it's like fucking secret white supremacist kind of thing. And it's like, I don't buy that.
I don't think so.
Don't buy it, can't buy it. I just think a lot of it is just like, once again, once you get to the top, get to a certain level, people just need reason to hate you. And we just clearly just seen it right here. Like, it's the part that you would have, should have wanted to educate them on if you cared enough. That's not even the part that we're even fucking. I mean, and they do talk about that later in the video, but that should have been the main. No, not at all. And that should have been the main focal part of the whole thing.
Right.
But I guess that actually, this thinking and thought process leads us into our next topic, and that's going to be CRT. We're going to have a conversation about the critical race theory. I've done a video about that prior by myself, and one thing I've noticed is that the people on the right, I'm going to speak directly to you. Let me look in this camera, and I'm not going to look at the screen looking at Zen. I'm going to look at the camera directly at you. One thing I notice about you people on the right is that the same way that you like to say the people on the left are soft, y'all are just as fucking soft, softer than fucking baby shit. So if people go down there, and I'll actually have it linked in the video below of the previous the CRT video that I did. You can go in, you can look at the comments, look at the video. You know, I speak about it, and I speak about what I think it should be, how it should be taught, you know, where there could be possible misconceptions, things on those lines. We're going to get into a deeper conversation about that in this episode. But the responses that I got in the comments were fucking hilarious. You know, clearly you on the right, especially you white people on the right, there is this profound guilt that you have amongst yourself because America has truly not atoned for its you know, black sin. I think, me personally, I don't think you're going to until you have the reparations and we figure something out with that, and then we can kind of do what we have to do in that regard, because everyone else has had something except for us. So I think there's always going to be that kind of looming kind of deal over there, and of course, because y'all, you know, the same way people say that we weaponize blackness, y'all weaponize your whiteness, and you will do it, especially if you're having a conversation with a black person. You get really spiritual and angry. It's just real funny how, like, that's the first thing that goes to your mind is to get negative in regards to your vernacular with using them. So when it came down to the video and then your comments and disagreements, they don't make sense, especially when you're just saying like, oh, well, are you going to teach that, you know, black people sold other black people to the white people? Yes, that is already taught. Like, a lot of your arguments are pedestrian. It shows me that most of y'all don't even know what is it that you don't like about it. You just hear critical race theory, something that has been taught in grad schools for fucking decades, you know, since the 60s or 70s, I believe. I want to say the 70s, definitely the 80s. Yeah, I want to say the 70s. It was taught in grad schools. So this is not something new, you know, but it's just the way that the name sounds. It's like this big scary boogeyman to most of you, and you don't even know what the fuck it is. But we're gonna have a conversation about it here, and I hope that you people on the right who continue to get butthurt about it, I hope you even get more butthurt during this video. Go eat a dick. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? I'll listen. I'll go fucking say that, and then I'll also go say let's go Brandon in the same sentence. Why? Because I don't give a fuck about either one of your parties, because they're all fucking bullshit party lines. And both of you don't even understand that you're on a gang about the same shit, just looking at a 6 and a 9. You fucking goons. But all right. So I'm sorry about that soliloquy. I had to just get that off my chest to these motherfuckers, because everyone else like to call me like a undercover conservative, so I always like to point out when I have issues with that side. Which video do you want to start with, bud? Because I do have one that's just like a bland what is CRT video, and then we can kind of get into the other stuff if you like.
We can do that one, yeah. Do that one first. That way we have, it's because even, at least from my experience of trying to understand it, it's not one that you can generally pick up anyway in any one video.
Yeah,
I just enjoy like a series that's like 4 videos long, 40 minutes, like each talking about like detailed. So this at least will give us a base for the other video. At least the video that I shared, where you'll hear nothing about this at all.
The video you share, hold on.
That's Fox one or whatever. The people to that one.
Let me pull it back up in the. I'm gonna get in the group chat.
I could pull it from. Yeah, it's definitely in the group chat.
Let me see.
The video I was listening to when I was shoveling, I was like, they pointed out that like the critiques are like you didn't read.
You're talking about the CNN one?
Yeah, I think so.
Is that the one? Okay. Oh, another CNN video, and I also got a Fox one too. That'll be a little interesting.
Yeah, that was the CNN one where I saw that Democratic spin to the end, but
of course, you know that's always gonna have to go down,
right? That's why I'm like, I'll chalk that up to CNN.
All right, cool. So I got that one. Okay. All right, so then let's get to this one real fast.
Theory because it's an attempt to explain and understand a wide body of facts, specifically facts relating to racism in the United States, hence the race part there in the middle. And critical race theory is critical because it focuses on hidden or fundamental conditions that give rise to racism, with the intent of changing them. In its origin, CRT is a way of understanding the persistence of racial inequality in America despite improvements in legal equality. CRT assumes that these inequalities are the result of racism.
Okay.
That right there clicks into some of the stuff I was just listening to. So I get it. I can get it. The guy was reading, I think, one person's perspective on it, so it might have just been theirs, but I could see where things are tying in. That works.
racism because no race group is naturally predisposed towards these negative outcomes. And here, racism is not just something that your embarrassing uncle does at a family gathering after a few beers.
Hold on. So like even that right there, you can have like a comment on, right? Because they just said like, oh, there's no one race is predisposed to being like what did he say, inferior? Or hold on, let's go back to the video. It's not even. Let's go. Hold on.
And here, racism is not just something that your embarrassing uncle does at a fully predisposed, assumes that these inequalities are the result of racism because no race group is naturally predisposed towards these negative outcomes. And here, racism is not
naturally predisposed to. That makes sense. Naturally, no. It's just one of those society ingrained into
societal things. Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
Not just something that your embarrassing uncle does at a family gathering after a few beers. CRT understands racism differently, as something both pervasive and persistent, existing as a set of background conditions in things like access to healthcare, quality of education, housing, employment, and treatment by law enforcement. Furthermore, this kind
Okay. Right now, no. Okay.
Yeah, this is matching up with what I just listened to.
of racism persists even when the internal operations of these institutions are perfectly fair and colorblind. How is this possible? Well, think about some sport where the rules of the game and the umpire's decisions are all completely on the level. Is this sport necessarily fair? Maybe not. We recognize that not everyone enters the circle of play on an equal footing. And even if they did, teams that win can leverage their winning status to create even more advantages for themselves. Again, remember, the rules internal to this sport.
Okay. Once again, okay.
And their adjudication are perfectly fair, and yet the outcomes are not. This is why CRT often questions the assumption and effectiveness of liberal values like equality and fairness. Next, because the background conditions that CRT describes are often non-obvious or even hidden, especially from those who don't feel their effects, finding and combating them requires paying attention to the experiences of the people who do experience them. This particular point comes from what is called standpoint epistemology. Now, there are
very interesting point that they put up there. Very interesting. I do know a lot of white people who would be mad at seeing this, but I know a lot of white people who understand why this is up there. So okay.
I don't think they have a clue what it is. In most cases, I said most don't have a clue what it is.
Yeah, it's
suntan.
Yeah. But no, I'm not talking about suntan. Like it's a few though that do. Like they got their. It's funny, you know what I'm saying? It's very interesting, especially because when you say it to them, they look at you like, motherfucker, yes, I do. Like, okay, my bad.
I think they use it for their hands. I give those ones. Like,
but you are right. I would say.
I don't know. More that use it for their whole body.
I would say 7 out of 10 probably don't. But all right, there we go. That's just me just talking some bullshit.
Yeah, no.
There are other concepts associated with CRT as well, like interest convergence, intersectionality, and the social construction of race, which I won't cover, partly because their relation to CRT is a bit contested. Some of those who criticize CRT think that these concepts are dangerous and being smuggled into society via fashionable educational programs, government initiatives, and corporate sensitivity trainings, while supporters see them as less threatening, necessary, or just limited to academic CRT.
Okay.
Which is separate from popular anti-racism efforts. Personally, I think that the concerns about CRT just mentioned are definitely overblown. And it's clear that many are just using the term cynically as a kind of political branding or scare word to gain cheap electoral or culture war victories, or to infringe on free expression and academic freedom. On the other hand, liberal defenders are sometimes guilty of smoothing over CRT's radical edges in an effort to make it more acceptable to sympathetic audiences, a kind of concept.
Okay, when they say okay.
Won't say nothing. I can see it a little bit.
Shell game that allows them to ignore both the drawbacks of CRT itself, as well as the actual issues that CRT critics are clumsily trying to highlight. There are also critics who argue that CRT is itself overly cynical, leading it towards lazy, knee-jerk interpretations of complex issues, and even fostering outright paranoia and conspiracy theory type thinking. In practical terms, the argument argument is that
I think it's too complicated sometimes for that. I don't know. It's hard.
No, I got you. We'll finish this thing on. I know it's a lot to interesting.
That the cynicism is actually counterproductive, and the ultimate aims of CRT might be better served by a more idealistic outlook. What do you think? Is CRT continuous with the unpopular, popular anti-racism efforts? Is it really the philosophical underpinning of these practices, as critics claim? And if it is, does this warrant an outright rejection of CRT? Or is there a way to separate what is good about it from what isn't? Is there a better way of translating the insights of academic CRT?
Is that somebody throwing away a baby?
Throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Interesting.
Into corporate, government, or educational settings. Obviously, there's a lot more to say on this topic, but I hope that this primer was at least a little bit useful. My recommendation is that if CRT should come up in a discussion that you're having, and if that discussion is not explicitly about the definition of CRT, try to avoid the term and focus on the concrete issues instead. Check out the description for some links to articles that I've...
There we go. All right. So the individual, the fella who was talking on the video, I think he did a good job of just kind of giving like this is a quick synopsis in 4 minutes of what it is and why people may have an issue with it. Also too, I liked how he ended when he said that, if you're having a conversation about CRT, but it's not about CRT, refrain from using it. Critical race theory.
Talk about the stuff.
Yeah. So you want to just break down CRT? What are your thoughts on it that you know so far before we get any videos? Before we get any of that, let us talk. Fuck the videos for a little bit. Fuck them.
That works. So, still trying to understand, but from what I've gathered is, I get where the ideas come from of how they say like the way that the government in a sense structures society, like how it adds race into it without directly labeling it type thing, similar to how like you added the prison stuff for slavery and different sentencing for the crack and cocaine, like where you're going to build in without actually saying anything about race, but you're going to structure what you do in a way that's going to negatively affect the race while in a sense trying to either benefit everybody or help everyone. Another one was like the integration of schools, where they're like, all right, cool, we'll take away the segregation thing, we'll integrate. And then the schools, so that what Black people wanted was better funding for their schools. They were fine being segregated, they just wanted better funding. And they're like, well, to give you better funding, we'll just blend you, because then you'll get the funding from the people who have the money, because that's where the funding comes from, which we demonize Black people already. So we've put into these people's minds, hey, be afraid of these, but now we're going to blend you together to try and help them, which is going to lead you to in turn moving away and leaving the Black people to still be in the same position
that they were in prior.
That's where I'm like, I see where they're going from, where they're going with it, but my critiques have been like once it gets past that, like, what do you do about it from there? That's where I'm like, I don't know how you fix that part.
I don't know.
You can't force people to not move.
Yeah, no, you can't. No, you can't do that.
But you, at the same time, if you're going to fund, it's where you kind of set people up to be on social programs, where it's like, if you're going to then better fund the schools, and the schools are better funded by taxes, and the people that live in this area work low-paying jobs, so they don't really have a lot of tax money, then you need the government to supplement. And then you're going to say, well, where's the government getting the money from? Which is the white people, and the white people are going to complain. So I'm like, I see where it comes, but to me, that's what critical race theory talks about is, hey, this is the way that race played into
us being
like that, education.
Now. Right.
This is how we were started, like steps back, so far back, because they made attempts to make everything equal, not realizing that what they did screws Black people still.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they look at it as you knew what you were doing and kind of didn't care, especially once it started happening. You're like, the law doesn't say anything. So
true. Well, I think that's a big reason why school choice, and now you're seeing charter schools pop up in like our neighborhoods and stuff like that, offering a different alternative. The schooling for us, which I think is awesome, because it's going to force the public schools to kind of like, have to get your act in order with certain regards, because we can even talk about the way that they are ran and they're funded, because there's a lot of funding that goes down, but it's all this money gets dried up, and then you find out about like, a lot of corruption. Like, at least I know in my district, I got to say that I haven't really been up in my old district I graduated from. I haven't been up in time too much since I moved up here, but I know when I was back down there, like, I think the last like 11 fucking superintendents, or however the number was, we fucking were giving, like, we have like a payout to, and you end up paying another one, and there's a whole bunch of like, there was like a big bribe thing going. I mean, not bribe, but there's big like I think that they were definitely like stealing money from the district, and there was like a lot going on. So we start looking at, our districts. I loved it. Like, the first thing I like to say is, well, let's look at the audits first. Let's look at where this money is going before we have any other conversation first, because you're definitely getting money, but the kids never see it. But now, in regards to direct conversation about critical race theory, for me, I don't know if you have to change it for the way it's taught, because to me, you can't talk about American history without talking about racial issues. And even the way that America talks about it now, everything is really kind of just like kind of glossed over. Like, I got a little more in-depth education into Black issues, because of one, my school district was predominantly Black. A lot of teachers took pride in that, so they definitely made sure they hammered points home when they were, when we were in like, class, like, obviously the textbook may say this, but let us give you what was happening behind the scenes and the true oversight of it, right? When I went to college, I went to college up there, up Oneonta, the good old Hartwick College, go Hawks, you know what I'm saying? Having conversations with my white teammates, and their education system, especially when it came down, like, to racial issues and like, things on those lines, was vastly different. We had a lot of the same key points, but to them,
I didn't get deep dives. I don't remember anything past like granted, I hated history, but I know we didn't go into anything beyond your Harriet Tubman, Martin Luther King, slavery, civil rights, move on.
Yeah, see, we got
no behind, there's no additional info, anything.
Yeah, see, my school used to, like, for instance, like with Brown, you had Brown versus Board of Education, right? We got even more in depth into it, because it was like, okay, yeah, it was passed federally, but still states were able to do kind of like, what they want. Obviously, states can fight it for as long as they want to. You even had certain counties going up, I think up until, what was it, like the 70s or the 80s, maybe? You had like the last segregated, like, kind of like towns, like, schools and shit like that. Like, yeah, so like, it wasn't like something that just straight happened.
Open-ended, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the same way that we're having a conversation about Juneteenth. You know what I mean? Like, that was when, like, the final slaves in Texas were notified that, hey, y'all are free. So so to me, when we're talking about American history, you have to talk about the true racial, the true racial, like the full gambit of it.
Right.
Especially for Black people, because it goes hand in hand. So when I hear people saying that, oh, we don't want to teach critical race theory, it's kind of like, I'm not here to demonize white people. You don't have to teach to demonize white people. You're just teaching it as history. Like, just teach history as history was. Like, listen, Germany has done a phenomenal job teaching, the goddamn Holocaust history within Germany. So I don't understand how. And not for nothing, the Holocaust. How long was the Holocaust? We're not going to get into that conversation.
Yeah,
but we're not even going to go into that. But there is a correlation. There is a correlation. Now, obviously, we weren't getting rounded up and put into, like, ovens and just indiscriminately killed off. We were just being enslaved, building this nation.
Right.
And then after we got, after we got free, then you had the creation of unions just to be able to fight all of, the great Black plight. You see what I'm saying? Was then led into, the bombings of our neighborhoods, so we were killed in different ways, but there is a direct correlation. So if Germany's able to teach the Holocaust the way it happened, as it is what it is, and this is what happened, it was it's a black mark, but this is how we got over it. We could do the same thing, but I think our issue comes because within America we have never truly atoned for it.
Right. I think it's the element of we were doing this wrong. We got called out on it. So rather than stopping, we just found another way to do it. And then kind of like tried to leave it at that. And then when we got caught on that one, it was too far in. So now we're just like, let's not bring it up. Let's not mention it. Let's leave it alone.
Exactly. Because they're like, oh, well, I don't like, why should it be taught? Like, that, I'm bad. I didn't have any slaves. I didn't do it.
It's not about you.
It's not about you. It is about teaching history. History is so that way we can all move forward accordingly and to truly start.
I think a difficult element is kind of like what I brought up before, where you integrate and say, we're going to blend the schools. So now if you live in this area, your kids will go to an integrated school.
Right.
The parents living there, the white parents living there said, I don't want that. I don't want my kids to be around them. So if you guys aren't going to change this, we're going to move. That idea means that white people were racist. So when you're teaching critical race theory and teaching an idea like this, I think
they were
now are afraid. I think white people now are afraid that they're teaching that white people are racist in a way that's saying like everybody, like everything that they did then is still what all white people do now. So they're like, I don't want my kid to think like that's where I'm getting coming from with their.
And I guess I understand the point, but my thing is, if you're not doing it now, then what are you scared of? And then what I'm saying,
that's where I don't think that it's a good argument, but it's probably
actually because it's actually still happening in today's day and age. Let's look at the housing market, right? So like, why is it that there's multiple accounts, multiple stories out there, black, a black homeowner or like a buyer, like their house, a black homeowner who's selling their home. Yeah, they're fucking like the house is appraised less.
Yeah.
Depending on the neighborhood they're trying to go into, it may be like they're at like
Hughley or whatever, right? Yeah.
So it's that, and that's happening in 2022.
That's happening on Long Island and Huntington.
Oh, it happens.
Hempstead.
Well, remember Long Island? Oh, probably. Hempstead's got a whole bunch of black people in there, so I can understand.
Somewhere out toward Nassau, where a lady was getting harassed at her house. The only black person on the block, I think.
Oh, Valley. Was that Valley Stream? I think it was Valley Stream.
She had like the signs outside of her house.
Yeah.
It was like it does still go on, and this is where
Long Island's the most segregated place in you and I grew up in a very interesting place. Long Island's the most segregated place within America. That makes sense. No, it is. Like there's been studies. Like it's the truth. Like it's very much so. It's it's very much been like coming up here. I was like, oh, because I was so used to one thing. I was like, oh, there's a lot of I have white neighbors within the same tax bracket. What's up? I mean, you know what I mean? Very interesting conversations we have nowadays.
Definitely.
Or some of them not in the same tax bracket, but the person who owns their home does, or maybe college kids, where the fuck it is, but the whole but what I'm stating.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think that's part of what like a fear is that their kid's not going to understand that. I guess the differences that are of the people and the mindsets back then, and that they're going to take it and internalize it as, oh, as a white person, I'm racist, but I don't hate them. So I don't know what that means, because it's going to be referred to as white people. White people were racist. White people are this here.
White Americans during this time period. No, but actually, you know what? Once again, I don't give a fuck, because what are they doing in Germany? With the Holocaust,
right?
Come on, yo, like, get over it. Like, I don't care.
Right?
It's history, because right now you're trying to actively not teach history, and then like as you say, so for people who don't know, I'm not gonna say the school district you went to. I don't know if you went to
Middle Country.
You went to Middle Country. You didn't go to Center
Middle Country School District. Yeah, that's Middle Country School District.
So all right, shout out.
Yeah.
So that was you went to school with a lot of whites.
Mm-hmm.
And as you just stated, even the way that y'all, taught about things besides like, the bullet points, and those are the major bullet points. You didn't even get in depth about certain things. I'm coming from a place who it's chocolates and Spanish folks, and the conversation within my school district eventually is going to have to become like, okay, how are we highlighting, Latin American history and things on those lines, which they're going to have to figure out, which I don't think they're going to have a problem with figuring out. You know what I mean? School district is the Black and the Spanish folks. We tend to do pretty well with one another. We still have issues, but we tend to do pretty well. But when you look at the education and the way that things are taught, like you can't just not teach history, because it leads us into these conversations now. Like, I don't care if they feel bad. Like, I don't care. Like, you get over it, because ultimately the kid knows. Because actually, the only way the only way the kid will feel bad is if he knows that his parents are assholes, or she knows their parents are assholes, or them's or whatever the fuck. Around you. Exactly. If he's like, yo, granddaddy and grandma ain't shit. Like, and it's all right, because hey, guess what? Just because your granddaddy and grandma is racist and they may hate the Blacks or Spanish, whoever else, doesn't mean they're not a good person to you.
Right.
You know what I mean? Listen, I have some family members that I'm questionable about. I'm like, I don't know how you are to other things and individuals, especially from conversations that we have had, or even family members who are deceased. Doesn't mean I don't still love them, but I also know that I'm a little fucked up. I'm not gonna cut them off. Still my family. It is what it is. You know what I mean? But you got to understand, like, the place that you put them in. Like, all right, just I don't agree with that. Like, we're not going to talk about this portion of certain things, but like, still love you, whatever the case may be, whatever. Like, so if they're not able to have those conversations, then they're just weak. It goes back to my other point. You talk about this strength. You talk about snowflakes and how people are soft and left is this. You motherfuckers
don't care about your feelings.
Yeah, like, you don't care about the feelings. Like, we got to be able to. Like, I don't want my kids to think that they're bad. The only way they're gonna think that they're bad is if they're able to go home and look around and be like, oh, you motherfuckers don't like Black people. You just like to say you do. Is that what it is? Hey, fun fact. Let's all listen. Just put your shit out front. Stand by your hatred then. Stand by it. You know what I mean? So that way your kids are gonna be like, fuck it, we don't care about it. But obviously, I guess for me, and I know right now I'm all over the place a little bit, talking to half sentences, half phrases, but it just ultimately comes down to, one, I don't care, but two, about the tiers of them. Get over it. If you're gonna be racist, be racist. If you're not gonna be racist, don't be racist. And if you're gonna be in between, teach your kids like, hey, I'm in between. Ultimately, I love everybody, but I have my own biases, and that's where most of us lie. Cool with everybody, want everybody to succeed, want everyone to win. Shout out to everyone, but also too, I got my own biases. It is what it is, and some of them can change, some of them won't. The same way other people have. It is what it is. But I think that's the conversation that critical race theory could possibly have, especially if you're teaching it within schools and you're having the debates. I remember the debates I would have in college. You know what I mean?
I think it would be a conversation. At least it should be, if it's taught in schools, it's got to be a high school level, like junior, senior level.
We can do middle.
You think middle school kids can grasp enough? Well, I don't know. I don't talk to them.
Well, you're already teaching them because it's
handle the multiple concepts part. The blending.
I think middle school is where you kind of dip it. I think middle school 8th grade is where you dip the toe in regards to like, and once again, I don't think
you gotta talk to some because
it's not critical race theory. I don't think, and I think maybe you have to change it for the, but it's really American. Let's just open the book on American history.
Sometimes trying to explain racism within that is tough to put together, to piece together the elements. So, and I get it. Listen, it's just I don't know the age level that they're able to really like how much I don't know when it comes to teaching, I don't know what level of deepness you're going into it.
As a sociologist, I remember being in school and we learned there were studies that kids understood the dynamic of race as young as the age of 4. Subconsciously understood who was where on the hierarchy of things. You see what I'm saying? So subconsciously, it's already there. So
I might say could be different now. I would say in the past it makes perfect sense, but now I don't know if that would apply. Like, I don't think she has a clue. I don't think she would look at anyone as over the other. Like, you go to that study where they did the dolls thing, and the black children were picking the white one because they said that this is what I saw.
But obviously because of education and growth. Yes.
Between and now YouTube, she sits and watches. Say hi, pretty girl.
Hi.
Greetings. How are you?
Good.
That's wonderful to hear.
What are you doing?
I'm playing.
What are you
playing?
I'm playing like in hide and seek tag.
Hide and seek tag?
Yeah.
What?
Well, you gotta go. Well, listen, don't get caught.
You gotta go hide.
Yeah.
Don't let mommy find you. Or is it Papa?
Papa.
No. Say bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Awesome.
They see like her sitting watching. Everybody that she watches, largely people of color. So she doesn't look at, oh, this one is better or higher up than the other. We're at the bottom. Nobody picks us for anything. Like, I don't think now.
But then, okay. But then if that's the case, then I'm gonna argue the reason that happened is because of the vocal conversations that we're having. We're able to have about race because of certain issues. Maybe some of these issues don't happen if we're able to have these tough conversations in the classroom versus having to have them now with an old society. Everybody's fucked up. Right. Guess what? Right. She eventually, right? We're old, not old, but we're old. You know, we're in our prime. No, we're in our prime. Like, you know what I mean? And then the way that things are turning, probably won't be out of our prime till like about our 40s going into our 50s. And then by the time we even get up there, shit, the technology is going. Let me tell you something. I'm going to hop on testosterone replacement therapy. You can bet your bottom dollar on it. When I get old enough, I will turn back the clock of time. Fucking don't give a goddamn. Let me tell you about this in a hot second.
I'm going to stay youthful.
Oh, 100%. And I'm going to be fucking yoked. And wait, hold on. Is Lil Mama around?
Nah, she's off.
Fucking gonna be fucking like a racehorse until I die. Ain't fuck out of here. Let's go. I want to feel like I'm 15 up on the deathbed. Justin, let's go. Wow, we're fucking 90. I don't care.
I don't care.
Doctor said we gotta stop. Fuck the doctor. Hell of a way. But so you know, obviously everything's ever changing, but the reason being is because we're able to have these conversations.
Right.
But let's not have to wait to have them, because that's the future right there. So if we're able to have these conversations with her, like, you know, she's able to have these conversations, her and her peers growing up,
right?
It brings a different attitude when they get older.
It would be better to let them do that there over, I think, even trying to have a parent from home try to explain stuff to you and they don't know what they're talking about.
I will not say that a parent from home does not know what is right for their child.
Not necessarily. I mean, as in, like, you only learn about this from there.
I hear you.
Be able to have the convo in school. That way you can hear the perspective maybe from another student who does know a little bit more. So then when you throw your point out, you got another classmate that's like, yo, I like, let that back and forth happen.
Right. I concur.
Where at home it can too, but let it, then whatever you're going to learn from home come to be challenged by other people who are of your own age.
I agree. It's just I guess to me it's just funny because just American, it needs to be expanded upon within American history. Just teach everything how it goes. Hell, most white school districts can't even teach Black History Month correctly. So fucking, they won't even, you know, God for like, you
don't even talk about slavery. Don't mention slavery.
It's interesting. Like, and this is what the whites want. Like, you know what I mean? And this is why it's like, I don't give a fuck about your feelings, or like, I don't want to feel bad, whatever like that. Like, you like
who cares?
Like, hey, listen, I have to fucking live with the fact that I'm a descendant of a slave. Somehow, some way, because like I've been to the plantation, but I have to internalize. At one point in time, one of my ancestors lost. Multiple of them. They lost. Then they fucking stayed enslaved. Didn't escape, obviously, because I know the plantation we come from. See what I'm saying? Maybe some of their siblings did, but my direct descendants didn't know. So I have to internalize that every day and have to realize, like, okay, you have to actively do things to fight against that. Like, okay, like for some reason, somehow something got fucked up here. Don't know where. You know what I mean? Because obviously there's multiple reasons that people got caught, multiple reasons people were, like, you know, enslaved, whatever the case may be. But I have to internalize that shit. But, you know, I do get the win that we did make it to America. You know what I mean? My lineage had enough, like, you know, and my father lives that every day. Because Lord knows. Shout out to you. He shows why we were able to make that fucking trek in them treacherous conditions. My father is a fucking tank. But like that's something I have to internalize. So like why do I have to carry that? Like, okay, listen, whites, hell of a run going on currently. Once you went over there and took over the Black kingdoms and fucking obviously it's funny how history just we just start in the goddamn medieval times. We won't talk about what happened previously. You know what I mean?
But like, erase everything,
Hey.
They did well at trying.
They did. You almost did. But listen, shout out to y'all. Like y'all win. A lot of violence, a lot of bloodshed, but you still are the winners.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, don't get mad that we're talking about the way that you won.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what?
That's the part that they don't want out. Is like we don't want you to really sit down and tell people like, how did you really do this? By this. You make a rule, integrate everybody. You see that they're starting their own stuff over there. So you say, you know what? We want to make everything equal, blend them all together, jack up their prices. They can't afford their stuff, so they can't really grow the same. But it looks equal. We're not going to talk about it. We're not going to really tell you until 2022. But it happened.
You mean that we're not going to have the conversation about why there's not that many black farmers, because what was happening is that black farmers' crops were being burnt and how their land was being stolen from under them, and how they had no place to really sell their goods, things along those lines, how they had to sell their land off just to be able to feed their family, go move somewhere else, do something else. We're not, you mean we're not going to talk about that? Or we're not going to talk about the one thing that obviously easily the biggest thing to point about, is obviously Black Wall Street and the multiple Black Wall Streets that were around. It wasn't just the one in Tulsa, Oklahoma, but they were multiple. They're around multiple places all over. I believe it was I think it's Central Park in New York. That was a hell of a black town, but they destroyed that. We're not talking about that. Or do you want to talk about how like the first bombing on American soil history happened within a black town with Baltimore? Oh no, we don't want to talk about that. Oh yeah, you're right. We want to get into and that's just stuff off the top of the head, right? Oh, you know what, Zen? Maybe we don't want to talk about the fact that how lynching is still not a federal crime. Oh, but we don't want to talk about that though, right? No, because we don't want their feelings to get hurt and they have the question about why is even that possible? We don't want to have that conversation. We don't want to do that.
Believe that type of information doesn't get factored in.
No, we don't.
So we'll save that because it doesn't fit. But I mean, if the videos go into it, the complaints tend to be I'm afraid they're going to teach it this way, which I could fear. I can understand a fear if you don't understand the concept, hear the title and think it's just white people are terrible. And maybe if you go and look up something on it and you see somebody out there, white people like somehow in a sense taking it and spinning it in a bad way. But I'm like, I've never heard it taught. People that talk about teaching it don't talk about teaching anything that you guys are talking about, but I don't know exactly what they're putting out.
I because of my major, I was taught this in school. In college, like we definitely dibble dabble because I definitely obviously my concentration was criminal justice, but I took a lot of the social social economic classes as well because they taught for me one I was always interested in it, and then it directly tied right into criminal justice. It was perfect. It was like, oh, this is why all this shit is happening right now. It fucking makes perfect sense. And in certain things I can see and understand. It's like you gotta do what you gotta do. Certain things it's like you fucked it up from day one. But in regards to critical race theory being taught, it's not taught that white people are inherently evil. It's not taught that white people are evil. Current white people are evil. It's just saying, hey, what the whites in the past did, they were some bad motherfuckers.
That's what it sounds like. Everything that I hear, I'm like, this just sounds like you're talking about
whites of the past.
And then in the end, you're trying to do what we're doing now, which is come up with a solution on how to fix it and get payback for it. But you come to the same blanks that we do.
Well,
I think.
Well, you know why? You want to know why? No. Let's take it even a step further, right? My grandmother, who I love to death, shout out to OG Grandma Dean out here in these streets. You know what I'm saying? She's my only living grandma. My other one, transition. Shout out to her too. She went through. She when she was living, she went to segregated schools, right? So the conversations I have with my grandmas is vastly different than ones I would have with my mother, whatever. But my father have interesting conversations because guess what? My father went to a segregated school up until I think middle school. and he was like in the paper. Like, cause he was like the first kid to walk into the school. It was like some crazy, like at the, like, or not the first kid, like the way that it wasn't that it was just it just the way it timed up. It was his picture, the kid walking in, and they talked about him, and I think it was him, like this white person, little white girl. Actually,
my mom said she came up with it like when she was young. She's like there was still segregated stuff. She's like I don't talk about it. She doesn't like talking about it, but she's like this isn't that far removed.
That's why they feel bad, because guess what? They have to go home and talk to grandma and grandpa and be like, hey, did you like that shit back in the day? And grandma and grandpa may say, hey, we did. I did. I don't now, but I did.
Is that the fear? That is the fear. That's what we're too close still to some of the people who were involved with this and who were in the middle of it and did nothing about it, I think.
And that's why we have to continue to keep pushing for it. Because guess what? At the end of the day, I don't care. Because you were able to benefit from it. It happened as history. We have to talk about it. It is what it is. Because you can't talk about American history and fucking race are hand in fucking hand. You can't take it away. I understand all these other groups are trying to now jump on the bandwagon and say, oh, what about this? What about that? Let me tell you something. Yes, you're getting your plate now. Yes, you deserve it. Everyone deserves their equal rights. But the even the reason that the LGBTQ is able to get the play, the reason that other minorities outside of African Americans able to get their plays because of the shit that goddamn black people went through since before the founding of the country. You understand what I'm saying? So so when we you can't even get to the fucking women's suffrage movement if we don't have the conversation about the blacks and freeing of them and their rights, because that's an argument that was used to get them their rights. What are we doing? Like everyone owes everything to black people, but no one wants to just fucking let's have the conversation. You don't want to acknowledge it, don't want to teach it, and then you don't want to pay for it. It's still happening.
Granted, I still think that's a tough combo, but that's another day.
I don't even think we should get to these other videos. And the reason I say that is because, fuck them.
That's not fun.
What are they gonna say? What are they gonna say that fucking we just didn't? Fuck these people.
The only thing I would say to them is that they point out the ignorance in, the CNN one points out the ignorance of the people who don't like it. Same with the article on why Florida's banning it. It's because they don't want their kid to feel X. Has nothing to do with it. I don't think that we should teach that white people in America are all racist. Doesn't teach that. I don't think that it should teach that. Does it teach that America is inherently racist? Because if not, then that's another point. It doesn't teach this. This is what somebody interprets off of it, and you're reacting to their interpretations and saying, we don't want to teach this because somebody interpreted this wrong, and I think that their interpretation is right, so we don't want to teach this. We want to ban this from schools because somebody said it's going to make my kid feel guilty. So
it is not even, and you know what? Are we using the kids as excuses? Because the kids aren't going to feel guilty. Kids are going to be like, oh, okay, that happened in the past. That's what it is. Like, that happened. Okay.
That's what I would think too. It's a kid's going to be like, oh, whatever. People did.
Okay, that's what happened. That's what they did in the past. Them old niggas was crazy, but we cool now. For instance, in my school district, right, grew up black and Spanish kids together. And I'm not even talking about just Puerto Ricans and Dominicans, Latin Americans, Central Americans, let's go. Shout out to fucking, listen, I love El Salvadorians. I love El Salvadorian food. You want to know why? Because those motherfuckers are a staple within my town. The El Salvadorian Day Parade in Hempstead is fucking popping. Popping. Papusas for everybody. They got a whole bunch of other stuff too that's good that I can't pronounce. I won't pronounce. But whenever when I'm with my homies, I'm like, yo, get me that shit. And they know exactly what the fuck I'm talking about. But so I grew up, obviously with, Spanish people. Obviously, you can see, a lot of Spanish people coming over, their businesses were popping up in the area. I would hear from certain family members about oh my God, I remember Mr. Charlie shop was here, but now it's this kind of spot. Or these black people used to own this, but now these people kind of own it, whatever the case may be. I remember hearing that. And I remember just being like, oh, okay, well, I don't give a fuck. They still cool people and we wanted to do it, then fucking we should have did it. I don't care. You know what I mean? Obviously, as I get older, you understand the dynamics of why maybe certain people it didn't happen. Like, why that loss of black wealth happened, but primarily because of the the AIDS epidemic. Just taking out a whole sector of our good soldiers. But ultimately, like, when my family members are like, if anyone around that would say something derogatory about Spanish people, never to Spanish people, but about Spanish folk, you know what I'm saying, or whatever the case would be, of what was happening within our neighborhood and largely the country, I'd just be like, who cares? And then obviously, I had other family members being like, who gives a fuck too? And then obviously, older people get, the more that the families start to integrate, people start having kids, and you start having, like, not even having kids, but like even having boyfriends and girlfriends coming into the play and shit like that. Then eventually you start to be like, oh, okay. Nah, they cool. It is what it is. You see what I mean? So I don't think the kids are gonna have that kind of feel. It's gonna be like, okay, that's kind of what happened, is what it is. And even if they hear their parents or their family members saying that asshole shit, they may have those conversations. I had a few of them, and it's been like, I don't think they're like that. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? And shout out to my parents. My parents were always good. Like, they were never racist. Never really said anything. Like, just a whole bunch of just like, because my dad's from the South, so you got to watch out for Johnny Law. You got to watch out for the white men. We come down here, and even up here, you got to watch out, certain situations. But, I think that's they didn't have conversations any of the black family wouldn't have with their son. Black parents. You know what I'm saying? But so I just don't prescribe to that for the kids. I think the kids will be fine. And
I think kids will be fine too.
The kids are the scapegoats. Yeah, right. Kids are the scapegoats.
Parents don't want to talk about it. Parents don't want to deal with it. So they're like, I don't want my kid to X. Why? Yep. Because they don't want them coming home saying this to me, and then I got no response for them. That's it. That's gotta be it.
I think that's it.
Coming home crying. Oh, they said that I'm this. Like, no.
Kid's gonna come home and be like, hey, yo, you know what I learned this? Yo, was because it's gonna happen. Motherfucker's gonna be at Thanksgiving. And he's gonna have like that one asshole kid, right? Who doesn't give a fuck. He's gonna be like, hey, grandpa, did you just not like black people? And grandma, were you calling black people jungle monkeys and jungle boogies? No, you weren't. Any documentation of this? Okay. You ever dated anybody black? No, you couldn't back then. So you liked it?
Why don't we ever have black people come over?
Is that why you never had any black friends? Is that why you moved? That's why you moved. And you sold to the black family because everybody else was black. Oh. Okay. I still love you, but y'all were a little bit of racist. Okay, it's cool. You can admit it. Okay. Going back to eating a steak, it's fine. Hey, listen, people. Some family members may be racist. It's all. Hey, I'm not gonna sit here and tell you how to judge your family, like how to judge people, but I'm gonna tell you how to usually judge your family members. We all have disagreements, all have like issues with them, but ultimately, like, they are your family, and if you care about them you enough, then you kind of figure out that, and maybe hopefully help to change them a little bit. You're not gonna make them come to the side, but you can make them more tolerant, things along those lines. If not, then that's your choice. That's your judgment. I don't really give a fuck. You know what I mean? But I'm just telling you, like, how probably, like, because hey, I'm not gonna say that. Like, I don't have family members. I don't have racist family members. I have family members who say some shit. I'm just like,
oh, okay,
that's gangster.
All right.
And it's on both sides of my, like, it's everywhere because like it's everywhere. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, it's not like, like I even have cousins like close to my age. I'm just like, you just said what? What about who? You know what I mean? But we all got biases, right? Myself included. So
I do too. You gotta learn to navigate through them.
Exactly. I know my biases, and I know when I should fight against them, and I know when I'm just like, I was right.
Wait, I'm gonna be right later.
You know what I'm saying?
I'll be right later.
Be like, get wherever I'm getting to. Look at Justin. I was right about whatever, right? Told you. Every time. Well, listen, this has been like Zen Chaos. A great true conversation, eh, bud?
This was good. I like
very good. Yeah.
We didn't even get to laugh at the people that I wanted to laugh at, but it's all good because this is way better.
We just because it would have been really, and I was thinking like, my house like, should we play? And I'm like, I don't think we should, just because we already covered them, and I feel as if we would be stepping on this greatness that we did. And fucking people have these short as attention spans. Hey, listen, we just gave you an hour and 10 minutes. Suck my dick. Fucking there's no fucking popping. Fucking everybody's fucking sounded good, looking good, feeling good, playing good. Like, let's fucking roll here, people. Listen, make sure you like, share, and subscribe this thing. Make sure you go ahead and fucking like the goddamn Black of the Berry goddamn channel. Go ahead and like the goddamn Schris Zen channel. Both are going to be goddamn down in the description below. Make sure you share this goddamn thing. Peace, love, and chicken, right? And you know, let's have a good week, hey? Hey, let's have a good week, man.
We'll be back for another one.
We'll be back we'll be back for another one. What will we be covering? Don't know. Depends on what happens during the week. But hey, we're here, baby. All right. Peace, love. We're out.